Hey there everybody, Matt here from the Planes, Trains, and Comic Books channel, and today we're going to review the Savage Sword of Conan #1. But before we get into that, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, commenting, it really helps me out and lets me know what you guys want to see more of. So, with that being said, let's get straight into it. Alright, we got the cover here for the Savage Sword of Conan #1. It is a Titan comic, and it is by Arcudi, Fafner, Zurcher, and Zub. And this is basically a relaunch of the old Savage Sword of Conan magazine. So this is almost 80 pages long. There's two main stories and a prose story, along with some artwork and a couple articles. And just like the old Savage Sword of Conan, it's all black and white, and it's also a little bit more mature than some of the other comic book series that were going on for Conan. And by mature, I just mean some more violence, a little bit more nudity. The story we're going to go over as part of this is the main Conan story, which is called Conan and the Dragon Horde. And in this, we start off with Conan as the mercenary general of an army, and he has been hired by this king to get this dragon horde that is inside of some fortress walls. So Conan and his men have been traveling for a long while to get to this place. Now, one of the people that's traveling with them is an engineer, and we're not really sure why she's needed at first, but of course the men in the group tend to not take her seriously. They just think she's there to look at. But it turns out there is a rule that was set by the king, kind of anticipating this, that no one is allowed to touch her. So when we see one of the guys around her get handsy, the king's guards come immediately and chop off his head. And like I said, these guys have been traveling for a really long time, and I think Conan and the king have kind of begun to get annoyed with each other. And this is kind of shown in this first scene as that man's head is cut off. The king blames Conan for not controlling his men, but Conan fires back, "That's not my man, I didn't hire him, you did." And later that day when they stop to rest, it seems that Conan actually doesn't care about the king's rule either, because he goes to talk to the engineer, and Conan doesn't really hide that he's looking at her, but he also is there to talk about why they would need an engineer. It seems kind of an odd thing. He's never really had one in any of his previous campaigns. And just as they're getting into the conversation, the king's guards come over and tell Conan, "You're not supposed to be talking to her." And Conan is enraged by this, but he doesn't push it this night. He's got other things on his mind because they're supposed to be taking the fortress soon, as they're almost there. When they finally arrive at this fortress, they find, of course, the doors are locked, so they have elephants try to break it down. But to their surprise, the elephants actually get attacked by something that begins to smash through the gates itself. And it turns out that behind those gates was a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex, and that is why the engineer is needed, because she devised and maintains a machine called a ballista that has the power to kill something like this. Now, Conan didn't know anything about this dinosaur, although the king obviously did, because that's why he hired the engineer and he had the elephants. And Conan is pissed about this, so he confronts the king, and it seems like the king doesn't care because he just sticks his lions on Conan, and they attack. And that's where I'm going to leave it with this Conan story. But I did want to mention that there is a second story in this book that is a six-parter. This is part 1 in this issue, and it is a Solomon Kane story, who's another Robert E. Howard character. And that one's called Master of the Hunt, and that's the one that's by Patrick Zurcher. So you may not know, but I'm a giant Conan fan. I started reading during the Dark Horse run that was written by Kurt Busiek and drawn by Cary Nord, and that is one of the best runs I've ever read of Conan. And since then, the quality has waned a bit. I wasn't really a big fan of the Marvel run, but now that Titan has the license, they are doing a great job. And this was awesome to hear that they were putting out the new Savage Sword of Conan magazine, and in the same kind of format as the old ones from Marvel. I love the way that this was put together, where you have one big giant Conan story that's kind of like a one-off, and then the Solomon Kane kind of backup story that's a six-parter that will go through all the issues of Savage Sword. And there's even a prose story by Jim Zub, who is the writer on the current regular Conan comic series that Titan is putting out. And while not comics, it is a great story as well. But since the main chunk of this book is that first Conan story, I'm going to go off that for this review for the most part. The story is great, the art is fantastic. I will say the only thing that kind of inhibits the art is in the print version, not so much in the digital. The black ink tends to sink into the paper more, so some of the details in the shadows and some of the nuanced areas aren't as easily made out as they are in the digital version, but that's just kind of what happens when you print on newsprint. So just know that going into it, it wasn't that big of a deal to me. I really like the backup Solomon Kane story as well, but like I said, that's just a one part, so I kind of want to see where it goes. Overall, this is a great comic. You can pick this up if you've never read Conan before, and you should pick this up if you're a longtime Conan fan, especially if you read the old Savage Sword of Conan magazine. Like I said, this is a mature reader, there is nudity, and of course they aren't shy about the violence either, so it's definitely not for kids. And I believe the price tag for this first 80-page issue was $6.99, which is crazy good. There's a lot of material for that. And I think that going forward, the page count's not going to be quite as much, but I believe each issue is going to be over at least 48 pages. And if you're watching this on Wednesday, May 1st, the second issue comes out today. So if you saw anything you liked, definitely go pick this issue up along with issue 2 at your local comic book store, and we will see you all in the next one.